Well, it's my great pleasure to introduce Ismael Kimirei speaking to us today. Ismael is the Director General of the Tanzania Fisheries Research Institute. He has his hands full in Tanzania. Tanzania borders the three largest African Great Lakes, Victoria, Tanganyika, and Malawi, and it also has about 700 kilometers of coastline along the Indian Ocean. So lots of water to work with in Tanzania, and Ismael is overseeing research and management on all of those water bodies. His research covers a broad array of topics, as you might expect: plankton dynamics, nutrient biogeochemistry, fish reproduction and recruitment in mangroves, fish ecology, fisheries management, climate change impacts, heavy metal pollution, and ocean acidification. I'm really glad he's speaking here today. Whenever we say Great Lakes, most of us just assume we're talking about the Laurentian Great Lakes because that's where most of us work. But the reality is there are Great Lakes in other parts of the world, and if you really wanted to rank them, I think by some measures, some people might say the African Great Lakes are even greater than the Laurentian Great Lakes. I recall getting in a debate with one of my college professors once about what the Great Lakes were, and he insisted they were the 5 Great Lakes here. I had to try to convince him that there were large Great Lakes in other parts of the world as well. But I'm glad he's speaking to us. The Great Lakes of Africa, they're critically important lakes, not only for the local communities, for which they're a very important food source and water source and transportation, but they're also a global heritage. They contain more water. The 3 largest lakes contain more water than our 5 Great Lakes here, and they contain way more fish species. They're the most species-rich lakes in the world. But they're facing challenges. Some of those challenges are due to local stressors, but some of them are also due to global stressors that is very challenging for the countries around those lakes to deal with, things like climate change. So I think Ismael is going to tell us more about that. Ismael, welcome.
Thank you, Harvey. I think he has already done my job. I can, I can go back home now. Actually, he did it better than what I, I may I may tell you. First things first. I wish to thank Harvey for inviting me, of course, and the IAGLR, International Association of Great Lakes Research. I will also like to thank IAGLR because I think among us here there are actually 4 people from Tafiri, and I will extend it to make it 7, including Catherine Riley and, and Bill, because they have been part of us for quite some time. In 2015, I remember we met with Harvey in Kigoma by the shores of Lake Tanganyika. And we were brought together by Russ, I think, Fengold, who was the special envoy to the Great Lakes, by then appointed by President Obama. And I remember we had quite a discussion on how the American Great Lakes can collaborate with the African Great Lakes. And after that, we had a couple of ideas on research projects and stuff, some of which never happened, but I think that's how some of us got connected to the Great Lakes of of America. And now that I have seen many faces from the Great Lakes of Africa, I am confident that this Great Lakes to Great Lakes initiative that Russ Fengold started back in 2015 will live on. And I hope the next conference, you will all be here and we will be presenting again the African Great Lakes. Having said those, I would like to take you through the few slides that I have, one of which will be to introduce you to the Tanzania Fisheries Research Institute, which is the institution that I run, which was established back in 1980. So we are a little over 40 years. You can see on all the lakes, sorry, I will, I need to annotate, I think. Yeah, you will see that we are on all major water bodies in Tanzania. And currently we are a team of 172, and there is almost 40 more coming to join us, I think, by end of this year. Harvey has said it all. The Great Lakes of Africa hosts almost 25% of the surface freshwater in the world. And Tanganyika alone, the lake that I have spent most of my time in, because I think I stayed there for 40 years. Not 40, sorry, 20 years of my career, research career, hosts 17% of the surface freshwater. It's a very clear lake with, I think if you throw in a Jerome's glass, you can see as far as 17, sometimes to 20 meters in the waters. Again, I have decided to concentrate on 3 major lakes that Tanzania harbors. But you can see that these lakes have very long flushing time. And the reason is most of these, they have only one outlet for Victoria, which connects to the Mediterranean. Tanganyika connects to the Atlantic through the Congo River. And Lake Nyasa, we call it Nyasa in Tanzania. Of course, you can call it Lake Malawi or Nyasa when you are in Mozambique. This connects to the Indian Ocean through the Zambezi River. These lakes, as Harvey said already, they are hotspots of biodiversity with over 90% of endemism. And this applies not only to fish, but to other organisms, including the ostracods, gastropods, bivalves, and sometimes they are termed as natural laboratories. And Seehausen can tell you a lot about this. Unfortunately, he's not here. These lakes are not only significant ecologically, but they are significant socioeconomically. And if you count about 10 countries, I think that these lakes, the countries that surround these lakes, almost 50 million people in the region depend on the protein from these lakes. Tanzania alone, 30% of the protein that we take in actually comes from fish, and mostly from these lakes. And therefore, we cannot ignore the socioeconomic importance of these lakes. Here is the humongous Nile perch. Maybe we can hear about it later in this talk. I wanted to give you a snapshot of what research has been conducted in these lakes. And for Victoria, it dates back in the early 1927 when Graham came to the lake and, of course, conducted several studies and provided the baseline of the biology and the ecology of the lake. By then, the system was dominated by two native tilapins, Oreochromis esculenta and I think variabilis, and 80% of those were haplochrome and cichlids. Unfortunately, as you will learn later, back in the 50s when Nile perch was introduced, almost 40 to 60% of the haplochromines disappeared. When you get time, you can talk to Dr. Mary Kishe, who is around here. She has a world thesis on what happened and the resurgence of the haplochromines in the lake. But in 47, there was the establishment of the East African Freshwater Research Organization. It was based in Jinja in Uganda. And this was coordinating research at least for Victoria. And as, of course, I have already said, back in twice in 1950 and 1960, there were introduction of Nile perch and later Nile tilapia, which came with all the all the baggages that we are currently struggling with. One of which was a blessing, Nile perch. And the intention was actually to fill, by then there were indication of overfishing. And so there was a lot of volume of the biomass of haplochromines. And so by then they thought if we introduce a predator, we can convert this biomass into a much more valuable fish. Little did they know that it will bring a lot of ecological issues. And of course, they introduced this against the advice from Graham and his team. I wanted to focus specifically on stock assessment, especially considering that these lakes are, for us, we see more protein than anything else. And so managing the lakes sustainably so that they can continue to provide the protein to the people is of utmost importance to us. And so at least from the studies I have done, you can see already that stock assessment was started back in 1980, 84. Again, this was done with the support of FAO, because by then the East African community had already disintegrated back in 1977 when we decided each one will take their own gear and leave the community. And then, of course, with the help of FAO and I think it was CIFA meeting that happened in Jinja in East Africa, then they decided to establish the Lake Victoria Fishing Organization, which exists today. There are moves by the new East African community to change it back to IAFRO and give it a much bigger mandate to manage even the marine waters. There is some resistance still, but we hope nothing changes to the LVFO because it has managed research in Lake Tanganyika, in Lake Victoria for quite some time and sustainably. And so we think we can proceed with it. So in 2002, I'm trying to skip in between. 2002, the East African governments decided to introduce a slot size as a measurement, the management measure for managing Nile perch fishery. And the reason was this. This is the data we analyzed recently, looking at the entire history of when we know that at least length data was started being collected in 1984. You see that back in 1998, there was a boom of Nile perch. And we had, by then, I think, a couple of tens of Nile perch processing factories. And around this time also, the Nile perch moors, the bladder from the Nile perch, the business was under the carpet, but it was booming. Of course, going to Southeast Asia, to China, and everywhere. And then the researchers in 2000, you could see that they saw a huge reduction in the Nile perch sizes. And so they decided to write a paper, and then the government accepted to introduce slot size. And the slot size was, you cannot fish anything below 50 centimeters and nothing above 85 centimeters. Unfortunately, some of us were enforcing, some did not enforce. And you can see that things a little bit improved after the introduction of the slot size. And then we went back to the problem. I understand that there will be a talk later by Dr. Mary. If you want to hear a full story of this, you will see it then. But you can see this dip here is what caused the people to think of introducing the slot size as a measure for managing the stocks. Now, I asked myself questions here, and I hope to pose them to you, and I hope that you can help at some point to provide answers if the fish moors could have caused this, because the bigger the fish, the bigger the moor, and of course, the bigger the price. So does fish moor business contribute to what we are seeing in the system? I pose that to you, and I hope you can help out. Or there are other ecological causes. I don't go into the deep analysis of the water quality and the deoxygenation of the lake, and there is a lot of compounding factors that are probably causing what we are seeing in the system. You will see that this is from the hydroacoustic surveys. I remember yesterday we had a nice talk, and I wanted to ask a question whether the use of hydroacoustic during the day was only for that particular species, or we can use the same also in other species, or it is an open question for research. I know we can argue and discuss about this. My problem is with this. These are not sardines. These are not small fishes. These are juveniles of Nile perch. So if you compare this individual here, just turn these into numbers if they were this size, and see how much we are losing because of fishing these small individuals. Unfortunately, one of my friends is not in this room. Somebody, Yepe Colding, who is advocating for balanced harvest. And I don't know if this is what we should be doing to feed the people instead of letting them grow and accrue more weight and feed the people. So However, you will see that the last hydroacoustic survey we did was in 2022. And normally we will do this in collaboration with the research institution in Kenya, Kemfree, and in Afiri in Uganda. So it's a coordinated effort. But then funding stopped. And so we cannot run this, so we have no data, hydroacoustic data for the entire lake since October 2022. It is another problem, although we are seeing that the population structure is actually skewed to the juveniles. We have no means of telling what is happening, except for some of us who are collecting length weight information from some of the landing sites in Tanzania. And I believe in Uganda and Kenya, they're also monitoring this. I don't want to bother you. I'm running against time. And now I would like to take you through a couple of research in Tanganyika, which started back in, at least from the information I have, from 1970s. Then you have the FAO FINIDA project back in 1992, 2001. Of course, there are several other projects there, the UNDP project. And then in 2003, again, I said I'm by extension inviting Catherine to be part of the Tafiri team. And you will see that in 2003, she had not a very controversial paper in Nature, because some of the classical fisheries guys were saying, no. This is a fisheries-related problem and not climate-related problem in terms of reduction in catches in Tanganyika. And luckily, in 2016, Andy Cohen, may God rest his soul in peace, wrote a paper in PNAS, again confirming what Catherine had found in 2003. And these are all studies picking, of course, using paleo data. I understand that currently there is a student, another Tafiri student in Arizona, who is working on reconstructing the ecological story through, again, using paleo data. But in 2022 and 2024, the government of Tanzania decided to provide funding to do stock assessment. And the reason was the catches were very, very low. People will spend nights at the lake, and they will come just with a bucket of 10 liters. You spend like $400 or $200 in terms of inputs. Then you come back with something you will sell only for $30. You can see the debt that these fishermen are accruing or accumulating over time. And so the government sent us to collect information to advise them on what is the problem. And luckily, the governments of the Lake Tanganyika Authority decided to introduce closed seasons because of the dire nature of the fishery in Lake Tanganyika. The closed season starts 15th of May and opens 15th of August. I will show you later what we are catching. And because of this, of the two successful stock assessments that we have done, the FAO also decided now they are going to fund a lake-wide study that we will conduct after the opening of the fishery this August. And so the study that we did, we're using our small boat. The Echo is called the Echo. It's a boat we inherited from FAU, I think, back in 1972, 1973. It still runs. And we did this only on our side of the lake. And the data is as you can see it here. We compare it from the study that was conducted in 1995, 1992, you can see the numbers. And then 2024, this was the story. We hope we will have a new figure towards the end of this year. And always in the central region, and of course the southern. These are the areas with high densities and of course high biomass. The northern is have quite low numbers, and I think the problem is the fishing effort is quite high currently in those areas. And below here is the in Nyasa, which you can call Malawi, at least they started earlier, back in the 1939. Harvey knows the story very well because he spent quite some time there during 1995, I think. Yes, for a couple of years. Currently, just actually last year, there was a USAID funded project only on the Malawian side. Unfortunately, because of you see, I'm calling it Nyasa because the other party calls it Malawi, and we are fighting over the name, fighting over the borders. And so most of these projects are on the other side, although we are trying to see that we can work together. And I think with the IAGLR and other people, we will see that we can at least work together and manage these lakes. I put a many question marks here, and I think the answers here can be filled with by my good friend Ted, because I know there was a project that was prepared between Tanzania, Malawi, and Mozambique, and I don't know the status, so I cannot say about this. Now, I think I still have some time. There is a lot we can talk about the future of Great Lakes. As I said earlier, Russ Feingold started this, the northern, the American and African Great Lakes. I think the future of fisheries research in the Great Lakes is collaborative and will use technology more than what we are doing now. And I have a list of a few things that we can do together. The management of these lakes is daunting. One, because they are huge. Two, because we have inconsistent data. Normally, the data we have is project-based. Once the project finishes, everything almost goes to a resting stage. It's like excitation of atoms, you know. They excite when they are projects, and then to a resting state when there is none. And we want to change this. We are currently using citizen science to collect at least length data, and our IT guys are developing tools to use your phone and take measurement to at least increase the accuracy of the data that we are collecting. Of course, there are several other projects that are in the pipeline, and we hope that again, with collaboration with you guys, we can get these lakes monitored and managed sustainably. Again, I said the future is collaborative, and IAGLR can at least testify to this, and we hope that we can do more later. Now, this is a bonus for you, because I think I still have a few minutes, but this is a bonus for you. You see, I told you earlier that we depend hugely on these lakes for protein and the employment to our people. In Tanzania, 10% of all the population, 10% of the population actually are supported by the fisheries value chain. So from the lake to the plate, there are almost 6 million people in this value chain. And so it's not a small sector. We would like to see it contribute more. Unfortunately, the fishery doesn't provide enough protein. I think we have about 800,000 tons of fish as a deficit to the demands of the country. And therefore, the government decided they are going to invest in cage aquaculture. And oh boy, they say better late than never, huh? And we think since we cannot turn back the hand of time, the only thing is to prepare. And so we decided, of course, the government gave us the money to first do a strategic environmental assessment. Before you go and throw in your cages, we will do the strategic environmental assessment for that. And so we did for Lake Victoria. You will see that this is all the sites that we went around sampling. It's a lot. We went over 100, I think, and 12 sites on the coastline of the lake, and currently there are already cages on Victoria, and the production are quite high. We are moving to Tanganyika. I will give you another. I wanted to. Oh, sorry. I wanted to. Sorry. No. This is a video of the. Okay. I think I need to.
Tuma hii hapa mzaliwa ndani imeshafika kwenye bonge la project kubwa zenye akili timamu ambazo serikali ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania kupitia Rais wetu Daktari Samia Suluhu Hassan na wizara yetu pendwa ya mifugo na uvuvi imehakikisha tunapata vitoweo. Unaambiwa sasa habari nzuri kutoka mifugo na uvuvi, unaambiwa sisi ni kitoweo na pesa. Sasa kwa mbali kule unaona Lamata vile wao wanakuonyesha uwezo wa kucheza show juu ya kisima cha samaki.
What did we do? So we collected data from the physical and chemical and fisheries, and we have this very nice database, as you can see, and we also made a monitoring plan that we are going to follow up, and each year collecting more information, advising people. We even calculated the carrying capacity from both physical and ecological carrying capacity to at least advise the government appropriately. I don't want to bother with you on this, just to show you what we have done. but we are lacking information for Tanganyika and Nyasa, Lake Malawi. And the reason is people saw the success stories in Victoria, and they want to do the same in these lakes. But we cannot allow them to do it unless we have done the prerequisite, the environmental assessment. And so we are currently working with the Nature Conservancy to see if we can map out Lake Tanganyika. And the reason is, my dear good friends, looking at this number here, you will tell that whatever you throw in the lake will stay there for as long. And so we want to do it intelligently, not just haphazardly. So what we are going to be doing is to collect information on the bathymetry. Of course, we know there is a bathymetric map that was collected using altimetry, I think, and a couple of few areas around Mahale Mountains National Park around here. Around here, which was a project by Mike McGlue from, I think, University of Kentucky, and a team also from Oklahoma and Arizona. We hope to expand this on the Tanzanian coastline to collect more information on the currents, get the communities engaged, and do the same also, of course, for Lake Nyasa, so that when we the cage fishing is in full swing, we don't regret that we didn't do our job before everything went. If everything goes wrong, of course, we want to be sure that we have done our job and advise the government accordingly. I think it is, as I wind up now, I think it is Chinua Achebe who said that the fly that has no one to advise follows the corpse into the grave. So our governments wants to be advised so that they don't fall into the grave with the corpse. Thank you. I think I did the thank yous earlier, so I don't have to do it now.
Thanks very much, Ismael. That was fascinating. Do we have some questions for Ismael? If you have questions, you can, there's 2 microphones set up here on stands. You can just walk up to the microphone and ask a question. And while we're waiting, Ismael, I was wondering, you showed in the beginning how there have been some international or some local international organizations to look over the management of these lakes. And I'm wondering, all 3 of these large lakes are multi-country lakes. They're international lakes. And you showed, for example, the surveys, the acoustic surveys you were doing on Lake Tanganyika, but they all stop in the middle of the lake because you have DRC on the other side. How much of a challenge is managing these lakes or getting good data on these lakes? How much of a challenge is that due to the fact that you have multiple countries around these lakes?
At least for Tanganyika and Malawi, it's very, very challenging. Tanganyika has a different set of challenges because we border Burundi in the north, and then on the west you have the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and south you have Zambia. Is there a Congolese here? No. No, I think I saw one Congolese. Yes. So the problem is the lake, if you divide it in three portions, the northern part where you have Kivu, the middle you have Kalemi, and in the south you have Moba and of course other cities. Almost each of these areas have a different faction running it. The government has very little control over what happens in some of these areas. At Tafili, we developed an electronic catch assessment system that is now being used in Zambia, Congo now, Burundi, Kenya, Uganda, and some of my staff were in Congo training these people when the war erupted, the current war. And so luckily they had FAO people, and they had to be airlifted out of Congo. But the thing is, if you, we only have the northern part that we collaborate with, and the middle and the south. And mind you, Congo has the longest part of the lake, 51%, I think. And so if it's not properly managed, it is a huge problem. Yeah, but we have a new project with the EU that is going to be managing water resources and fisheries. And we are establishing a new research station in the middle of the lake on the Tanzanian side. And the intention is to see if we can assist collecting information on the other side of Congo, if it is possible to do that. Otherwise, it is a huge problem, and yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Debbie has a question.
Thank you very much, and much appreciated your presentation. Very informative. If I understood your slide correctly, you received USAID funding from 2021 to 2024 to assist with your data collection. What impact may you have going forward if USAID funding is curtailed?
Okay, so the USAID funding was for Lake Nyasa or Lake Malawi, and it only covered the Malawian side of the lake. And of course, they had a couple of things that they did, one of which was to institute an electronic catch assessment system to collect information on the Malawian side. And other, I think they were trying to deploy automatic recording, whatever, the underwater rovers to identify fish and of course measure the quantities. I don't know how far they have gone with that, but my point is until we have our priorities together, any source of funding to manage these lakes is welcome, whether it is USAID, who has been a big player, I think, in many of our waters, or it is Great Lakes special funds to get this done, or it is Catherine and his American Great Lakes to come to us. I think we welcome every effort. Previously, I think it was the NSF which has been funding most of our research in Tanganyika, and I think currently also for Lake Victoria. So yes, I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Ronald. I'm from Uganda, and I'm so pleased to hear about the record that you've managed to present to us today, and it raised some questions in my mind. Both fish introductions of the invasive Nile perch, of the Nile perch, and aquaculture have been demonized. You mentioned Yepe Colding, who is always talking about the fact that you have to use fish to feed fish. So why not just feed people with the fish instead of going into aquaculture? So both of them are, should I say, evils in this sense. But in light of the last thing you mentioned, getting our priorities right, the issue of fish, animal protein is very, very important, and livelihoods. I have seen quite a number of livelihoods that have been terribly hurt because fishing is, it's not existent. And we saw this also in the video, the screening we had a couple of days ago. So in light of all this, I would like to hear your thoughts about the two issues, introductions and aquaculture. What would be the way forward for us? Is it neither of them, or is it both of them, or is it just one of them? Thank you.
How many minutes do you want me to spend on this? Yeah, so I said earlier, you cannot turn back the hand of time. If you force it back, you will break it. Before this, what we have been doing in Tanzania, cage aquaculture was illegal in Tanzania. And that's why, although the Ugandans started earlier and the Kenyans came along, we were slow to do this. And the reason was we wanted to do it right. And since the policy and the minds of governments have changed, we cannot force them to not do it. What we can do is help them to do it right. But again, you see, in ecology, we talk of trade-offs. I will trade being tall so that I can have enough reserve for tomorrow. The same happens when the fish wants to breed. They will invest more in gonads instead of putting on fat, and you see, the same happens. The same will apply in again by the policymakers, by the governments. You are not going to get me started, but I will. We have been trying to get funding to do all these other conservation and other stuff and research, and the stock assessment that we see. It took us 30 years since the last stock assessment, almost in Tanganyika. We did it 30 years later. Why? And we did this after we have seen the consequences. The thing is, the policymakers look at the priorities. If I go to a policymaker saying I need $1,000, $1 million, for example, to conduct a stock assessment in Tanganyika for 1 year, they will weigh whether they should pay for hospital beds or test kits for COVID, or give me the money to go and do hydroacoustic survey in Tanganyika. And so that is one of the issue. When it comes to cage aquaculture, I know it has its bads and it has its goods. The good, we have the protein. The bad, of course, the environmental impacts. And how do you go about choosing whether to invest in aquaculture, cage aquaculture or not? And that's why, again, I think it's a chicken and egg issue. For us, we decided to start with the, I don't know if it is an egg or a chicken, but start with the basic. I know there are Kenyans here. They will tell you, on their side, there is a lot of fish kills in the cages. It's causing a lot of losses. And the reason is the basics. Some of these people put their cages in areas that are 3 meters deep. Of course, if there is an overturn, everything dies in the cage. So for us, apart from mapping out all these areas that can, and of course, putting in place the carrying capacity, we also calculate how much feeds these people are going to put in, how much nitrogen and phosphorus, and of course, through monitoring, we will be controlling this so that it is a lesser evil than, than how we see it. On the introductions, again, that's why for Tanzania, you cannot take a fish from Victoria and put it in Tanganyika. No. And the reason is we don't want to do introductions. We know Nile tilapia is invasive and several other species. So we have the basins. So if you are in Lake Malawi, Lake Nyasa basin, you use the chambo, you use the tilapia from that basin. When you are in Tanganyika, you use Oleochromis tanganyikae. When you are in Victoria, then you use Niloticus because it is already there. And we are instituting biosafety measures so that we don't bring in the gift species from Thailand and everywhere. All these are all quarantined. We cannot, we are not at least doing this in Tanzania. Less do I know on the other countries because they have different measures on this. Although there is a project, I think, through Fish, you may, yeah, there is one presentation, I think, tomorrow on this, what we have been doing on a regional level for Victoria to put in place biosecurity measures and looking at the introductions so that it doesn't spiral out of hand.
Hi, I'm Diane Henschel. I know that in Kenya, which is the one area that I'm most familiar with, there's a fair amount of industrial pollution in some of the inland lakes. How much monitoring have you done of the chemical pollution, and how much do you think that could be attributing or could be contributing to the loss of the populations that you're looking at? And how much monitoring is actually happening for chemical pollution in any of the lakes? Thanks.
Thank you. If I heard correctly, you said how much industrial pollution? Okay. So I will start with Tanganyika, which is almost pristine. Okay. I told you the waters are almost 20 meters visibility. Although we have been seeing this, there is deoxygenation. And of course, we link this with climate change, the warming, which is reducing fish habitats. Okay, only in the city centers, you can see some type of pollution, and mainly through effluents from the farmlands. In Kivu, and sorry, not Kivu, Burundi, and the city on the other side of Uvira in Congo. There is not much already in Kigoma, which is another city on the Tanzanian side. But if you go to Mwanza, to Lake Victoria, the lake is a mess. I need to to accept this. It is a mess, and it is a mess not because of cage aquaculture. It already started earlier. There is a lot of nutrients input from farmland. And of course, there are major cities around the lake on that side. You have Kampala, you have Kisumu, and you have Mwanza in Tanzania. And all these almost pump the nutrients into the lakes untreated. Although currently they are already construction of the waste treatments to get these nutrients at least removed before the water goes into the effluents go into the lakes. And because Victoria is already, it is eutrophic already. And the balance between what is available in the water column and what is pumped or sequestered into the sediments depends on the sediment, water sediment, the oxygen at the water sediment interface. And therefore, every time there is an upturn, you have a lot of blooms, and it can become a green soup. Recently, if you follow the news on the Ugandan side, I think it was, people have been complaining. And I think my Ugandan brother here will accept that's one of the reasons is sand mining. So people are going to mine sand in the lake. Little do they know that they're actually perturbing the system and releasing nutrients that have been locked into the sediment. And that is what you see. There was a problem of HABs, especially in the closed bays, and the water hyacinth. Recently, we saw the Kariba weed, I think Salvinia molesta in Tanzania, which is a very new thing. We are fighting it now. At least we are using removing them to remove nutrients from the system. I don't know if I have responded to your question.
What I've seen in Kenya is their industries choose different water bodies and then release chemical effluents. And sometimes it's pesticides, sometimes it's other industrial chemicals. And that, at least in Kenya, there's very little monitoring of the chemicals that are there. And when they do impact assessments, you end up doing a trade-off on how to control it because they are not doing enough monitoring of it. So they just kind of do, well, we'll build a clinic here to offset whatever illnesses come from people drinking the water that's contaminated with chemicals. And so I know the situation in Kenya, and I know how bad it is in some areas in Kenya, and I don't know what it's like in the rest of Africa, but I can only assume that there's still industry. It's still being built up. It still releases chemicals, and there's a complete lack of regulations about chemical releases.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Please come work with us.
All right, thank you very much. Please join me in giving a hand to Professor Kimirei.